Dear friends, I'm operator Starsky reporting on day 1153 of Russia's war. Today we'll talk about Putin's Easter ceasefire that never happened, the risk of the US withdrawing from the peace talks, and Russian terrorists weaponizing Orthodox Church in Europe. My dear friends, this is the Frontline Focus. Let's roll. Let's start with the Frontline update because this Saturday internationally wanted war criminal Putin stated that his troops were ordered a unilateral Easter ceasefire. According to Putin, this one-day ceasefire was supposed to be finished this Monday, which it did with a massive drone attack that took place in Ukraine tonight. The fact is, this so-called Russian Easter ceasefire began with Russian drone attacking a civilian apartment building in Kherson on Saturday, exactly after announcing this ceasefire, and also 3,000 cases of Russian attacks that took place during Sunday, according to Ukrainian president. To all those wondering what the hell was that, there is a very simple explanation. First of all, by declaring a ceasefire during a significant religious holiday, Putin aimed to portray Russia as a nation respectful of Orthodox Christian traditions and humanitarian values. This move sought to improve Russia's image domestically and internationally, suggesting moral high ground in the war. This was quickly debunked though, because Russian artillery and drone strikes didn't stop. Second thing, the ceasefire announcement also served as a diplomatic tool, positioning Russia as open to peace initiatives. However, it was also debunked because already in March, Ukraine and United States offered Russia an unconditional 30-day ceasefire, which Russians didn't accept. And most importantly, based on experience, of course, such so-called ceasefires often provided Russia strategic advantages, allowing Russian terrorists time to regroup, resupply, and reinforce positions without immediate threat from Ukrainian defenders. For example, the Institute for the Study of War noted that previous ceasefires, like the one during Orthodox Christmas in January 2023, were used by Russia to prepare for future military actions, which is exactly what we've seen this Sunday with Russian terrorists resupplying their troops and building pontoons, for example, across the Chorny Zherebets River in Donetsk Oblast, where Russian invaders experienced a lot of difficulties. Another key fact is depletion of Russia's long-range weaponry. Analysts from the Center for Strategic and International Studies indicate that Russia likely exhausted the portion of long-range missiles that were initially allocated for its operations against Ukraine. To sustain this campaign, Russia has drawn from strategic reserves and repurposed other missile systems for land attacks. And in my personal view, everything indicates that Russian terrorists prepare for a significant offensive around early May this year. Therefore, Russians literally used the Easter Sunday not only to resupply their ground troops, but also to reposition long-range missile systems like Iskander and Kalibr platforms. They also resupplied ammunition, drones, missile stockpiles, and spent this day repairing and recalibrating systems that required maintenance after sustained use. And now, if we take a look at the map, the main Russian offensives during Russia's so-called Easter ceasefire took place around Kherson, Izum, and Kharkiv. In the Kherson region, Russian forces launched attacks on Ukrainian positions in Alexandrivka, situated just west of Kherson city. However, these assaults are likely aimed at increasing pressure against the Ukrainian troops in Kherson rather than signaling a major offensive towards Mykolaiv. South of Izum, Russian troops achieved partial tactical success in their attacks. We're talking about mere square kilometer of the captured territory, indicating localized advances. However, these gains come at a cost. In Kharkiv Oblast, for example, the Ukrainian General Staff reported that a battalion tactical group from the 233rd 37th Tank Regiment withdrew back to the Russian Belgorod due to the heavy combat losses sustained by the Russian invaders. Already 2 American officials admitted last week that the US may withdraw from the peace talks. Marco Rubio stated that the United States could end its efforts on ending the war in Ukraine within days if there are no signs of progress. He said, "If it is not possible to end the war in Ukraine, we will need to move on." He also said we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about a matter of days, whether or not this is doable. Keith Kellogg, in his interview to Fox News, agreed with Marco Rubio. He said that the US may withdraw from the peace talks, but still expressed hope that the war can be settled, which in my personal opinion only indicates that Keith Kellogg and Trump administration in general are simply underinformed about Putin, because Putin invaded Ukraine in order to occupy it in 2022, and peace deal is definitely not part of his military strategy. And it's very likely that our American colleagues will learn about it really fast. According to Wall Street Journal, in Paris, Ukrainian officials were handed a list of Russian demands that were agreed together with the US. In this document, Ukraine was offered to stop the fire, recognize the annexed Crimea as part of Russia, cancel Ukraine's intentions of joining NATO, and recognize the occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant as a neutral territory, which eventually may be acquired by the United States. Personally, I have no idea how legit is this top-secret document unless it was prepared by Steve Witkoff, an individual who didn't even know how many regions of Ukraine were occupied by the Russian invaders. Also, he didn't even know that the cities of Zaporizhia and Kherson that he wanted Ukraine to give up to Russia are still controlled by Ukraine. Also, according to Witkoff, Ukraine should care less about those regions because they are populated by primarily Russian-speaking people. Considering this brilliant conclusion, I wonder why doesn't English-speaking Steve Witkoff advocate for his English-speaking country to join United Kingdom? You know, my friends, when I hear individuals like Witkoff or Kellogg sharing their amazing ideas on finishing the war in Ukraine, it reminds me of this old story when a farmer asks his friend for an advice because his chickens are dying. The friend suggests to stick a paper circle to the chicken coop. Next day, the farmer returns to his friend saying that he did what he said, but the chickens keep dying. So his friend suggests him to stick a paper triangle to the chicken coop, and they will definitely stop dying. Next day, the farmer tells his friend that all of his chickens are dead. His friend says, "Oh, that's a pity. I've had so many brilliant ideas to offer." And to finish this episode on a religious note, a Russian spy network has been exposed in Czechia, operating under a disguise of a Russian Orthodox Church. According to Czech intelligence, a group of Russian spies from GRU used an Orthodox church in Karlovy Vary for covert meetings and influence operations aimed at destabilizing the European Union. The former head of the Karlovy Vary parish, Nikolai Lishenyuk, was expelled from the country last year over national security concerns. Local officials described him as a loyal Kremlin emissary who used his influence to spread propaganda against Ukraine and the West. I know only one organization besides Russia known for weaponizing religion on such a scale around the world. Of course, I'm talking about ISIS. Russian Patriarch Kirill is known for blessing Russian terrorists and publicly calling for a holy war against the West. But despite that, my dear friends and family, I wish you all a beautiful day and a happy Easter. Don't forget to subscribe to stay informed about the most important updates, and also share this content to help Ukraine be heard. I'll see you in the commentaries. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.